I've been a little quieter here than I would like to be over the past week, and that's because I am getting absolutely crushed by life and work and assorted other calamities, such as the reality in this dude's life. It's just how it goes. I'm not complaining. It is what it is. But I knew that I would not be able to sleep tonight if I didn't somehow make time for this video about the recently announced nominations for the 97th Annual Academy Awards, the Oscars, which will be held the night of March 2nd. Those nominations, the announcement of them, of course, had been delayed multiple times due to the absolutely gut-wrenching, heartbreaking nightmare that continues to unfold in the Los Angeles and Hollywood areas with respect to the LA fires. Still an ongoing calamity. It has absolutely devastated the music community in Hollywood, which is going to be a point of particular focus here on this channel, the topic of which always is music, but certainly the film industry as well. And there are ways in which the Oscar Awards are going to reflect its awareness of that tragedy, its heartfelt efforts at doing whatever it possibly can to help its own community recover from this nightmare. One of the ways in which it's going to do that is by moving away from the performance of original songs and instead doing something to sort of explore the influences underlying nominated songs this year. It isn't clear, based on the reporting I've seen, exactly how that's going to play out. But if any industry can be trusted to do a bang up job of in a cinematic fashion and in an illuminating fashion, exploring the influences undercutting the very music that it's celebrating through its nominations of the songs and scores in the films that are on the list of nominations this year, it's certainly Hollywood. So I think it's going to be must-see TV in particular this year, and I think that goes for the Grammy Awards on February 2nd as well, which I'll talk about in subsequent videos here, in particular as it relates to The Weeknd. Interesting record he's got coming out next week that also has been delayed for a number of reasons, and he has stepped up in ways that are just huge and bold. That's the subject for another forthcoming video about how these fires have affected this award season. But man, as I said, I would not sleep tonight if I didn't make a video on the amazing news that these recently announced Oscar nominations present for one film that you and I, of course, have spent an abundant amount of time discussing here at The Curious Listener, and that, of course, is the Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown. I believe this may be my fifth regular length video, and I don't know, I've sent out there about 100 million shorts on this topic as well, which I'm sure you've seen if you're coming back. 8 Oscar nominations for A Complete Unknown. We have been wondering, right? I did the video about the film being snubbed at the Golden Globes. We saw some promise, and I'll get into this at the SAG Awards when the Screen Actors Guild Awards nominations were announced. And this knocks it out of the park. 8 nominations for this Bob Dylan biopic, A Complete Unknown, based on Elijah Wald's excellent book, as we've discussed in prior videos, Dylan Goes Electric. It's about this hugely influential and pivotal moment in Bob's career when he makes the audacious decision to not please the crowd, but to rather be true to himself. At the 1965 Newport Folk Festival, plays this electric set at the largely acoustic and folk-driven Newport Folk Festival. It wasn't something that no one there wanted to hear, but a good portion of the crowd, if half, if not more, were put off by this. Of course, in the following year, 1966, when he's on tour, he's screamed at by a fan, Judas. He's said to have betrayed the audience that craved a Bob Dylan who would continue to essentially be their puppet, right? And play us the protest stuff. We want to hear Blowing in the Wind and Chimes of Freedom, man. What is this, like a Rolling Stone and all this rock and stuff you're playing with Mike Bloomfield? That's not the Bob that we knew and loved. And Bob was perfectly happy with being true to himself, and if that came at the expense of alienating fans that perhaps weren't true fans but rather were only fans of one dimension of his creative horizon, that was fine with him too. That's what this story is about. That's what this book is about. That's what this film is about. It is, in my view, a moment that is so seismic in impact in the history of American pop music that it is absolutely deserving of its own film and its own book. And here it's received both in rich quantities. Now, yes, in prior videos, I have expressed my concerns about what I perceive to be the film's mishandling of the facts in Dylan's life in this period with distortions and fabrications I consider to be both unnecessary and distrustful of the audience's ability to think for itself. But throughout all of that, my criticism of this film on those grounds, I have always praised the acting throughout the film, which I found to be a marvel from first scene to last. Um, this is one reason why the snubbing of the film at the Golden Globes was a little perplexing to me. You had 3 nominations there, right? You had, of course, Timothée Chalamet nominated in the category of Best Performance by a Male Actor in a Motion Picture, in the category of Drama, which, as we've discussed, may or may not have been a miscalculation by Searchlight Pictures as to how it presented this film at the Golden Globes. You had Ed Norton nominated for Best Performance by a Male Actor in a Supporting Role for his wonderful role as Pete Seeger. And you had the film outright nominated for Best Motion Picture, again in the category of Drama. Conspicuous by her absence, I think we now can say, was Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez. Now, I have praised her to the hilt for her command of this role, the immense talent, the immense work ethic that she demonstrated in her portrayal of this incredibly important and impactful and strong cultural icon. I would describe her as Joan Baez. I'll have much more on how Monica Barbaro approached this role, her own interactions with Joan Baez, who's now in her 80s, as she studied Joan and then and now. Now, you guys mentioned after my video about the snubbing of this film, none of those 3 nominations culminated with a Golden Globe win at the Golden Globes. But as you guys mentioned in your comments, when the Screen Actors Guild Awards nominations came out, the SAG Awards, they were quite kind to this film, and the suggestion there was maybe this film might have a win or two awaiting it at certainly at the SAG Awards and maybe even at the Oscars. And those nominations from the SAG Awards were as follows: you had again Timothée Chalamet, not surprising at all, Best Actor nomination for his role as Bob Dylan. Best Supporting Actor, again, Ed Norton at the SAG Awards. He's nominated in that category. And then we got, finally, Monica Barbaro getting her due as Joan Baez, Best Supporting Actress. So you saw that. And by the way, it was also nominated for Best Ensemble Cast by the SAG Awards. So 4 nominations there for this film. The most special among them, I would argue, and will argue as we progress here on this video, would be Monica Barbaro as Joan Baez. So as you guys mentioned there, look at these SAG Awards. They're being rather kind to a complete unknown. Sure, it was snubbed at the Golden Globes, but maybe there's hope on the horizon here thanks to the little bit of light that was shed by these SAG nominations as to the film's promise at the Oscars. Well, here are all 8 nominations for a complete unknown at the Oscars, and one of which is very special, and I think I've already tipped my hand off to which it is. This is an absolutely delightful development in the story of this film's run through award season, I would say. Now, Best Picture, James Mangold, Fred Berger, Alex Heineman, all hoping to bite off the Oscar on March 2nd in that category. Directing, Oscar nomination for Jim Mangold. Actor in a leading role, of course, again, Timothée Chalamet. I mean, the kid's killing it. This 29-year-old breakout star, Timothée Chalamet, for his wonderful work as Bob Dylan in this film. Actor in a supporting role, Ed Norton again as Pete Seeger. Actress in a supporting role, Joan Baez. Despite being ignored by the Golden Globes, she is nominated here in the category of actress in a supporting role as she was at the SAG Awards. So the community here, the Hollywood Awards community here is maybe more slowly than we would have liked waking up to, frankly, the genius that Monica Barbaro brought to her portrayal of Joan Baez, who I think gets a very deserving, wonderful, brilliant portrayal by Monica Barbaro in this film. You have further nominations in the categories of writing for Best Adapted Screenplay. That's James Mangold with his co-writer Jay Cox, who, as I've mentioned in prior videos, also had a hand in the writing of the Gangs of New York flick by Martin Scorsese. Other awards include Costume Design. That's Ariane Phillips. You have an award in Sound. Todd A. Maitland, Donald Sylvester, Ted Kaplan, Paul Massey, and a guy named David Gianmarco, which caught my eye because my name is John Marco. I don't think I've ever mentioned that on this channel before. His last name is spelled Giammarco. My name is spelled Gianmarco. And that certainly caught my eye because one for the Italians, baby, right? Chalk went up for the Italians. That's great. I was very excited to see that. Listen, we Italians are a little sore still that Travolta didn't win for Pulp Fiction. That might have been 1994, but again, we Italians know how to hold a grudge, all right, dude? And I haven't forgotten. Okay, so yeah, chalk went up for us Italians there with that sound nomination. But to me, again, the special one here is Monica Barbaro. Wasn't even nominated at the Golden Globes. SAG nomination hints at the possibility of great promise at the Oscars. And that promise has now come to fruition with this nomination. Now, I wanted to read to you Monica Barbaro's entire post about this on Instagram. She posted it the day of, which I'll link to in the description, by the way. But this is what Barbaro had to say about this nomination. What? This is me, literally floored, and that's accompanying a picture on Instagram of her on the floor, weeping into her hands, having learned of this nomination. Upon the news of this nomination, same as it was when James Mangold, cast me in this film in the first place. Getting to be a part of this project has been the honor of a lifetime because of how much respect I have for Joan Baez and all the artists we portray in A Complete Unknown, as well as the artists I've gotten to collaborate with in the making of this film. I'm immensely proud of everyone involved in this movie, completely humbled to see my name among the actresses in this category who I hold in such high regard, and I'm deeply grateful to the Academy for this recognition of everyone's brilliant work. And thank you for the gorgeous messages you guys have been sending. I've got to play a bit of catch up over the next few days, but I love the love and can't believe how lucky I am to receive so much of it today. This makes me beam because, as I said in prior videos, all the praise, justly, all the praise that Chalamet is getting for his role as Dylan, I was concerned it was going to overshadow the terrific acting surrounding him throughout this film. And it's not just, Monica Barbaro and Ed Norton, respectively, in their roles as Joan Baez and Pete Seeger. But again, let us not forget, Boyd Holbrook is freaking brilliant as Johnny Cash in this film. Scoot McNairy as an ailing, dying Woody Guthrie who has been robbed by a nerve disease of the ability to communicate and therefore has to use every means at his disposal except speech to portray Woody Guthrie. Scoot McNairy does a brilliant, wonderful job. Some of the, I think, most powerful scenes in the film are Scoot finding every means by which to communicate the still the spirited soul of this American icon in Woody Guthrie in certain scenes in this film. Certainly the early on scene in the film when Timothée Chalamet performs "Song to Woody" for him in the hospital, and then later on in the movie, towards the end, movingly, when Chalamet as Dylan is portrayed as having returned Woody's harmonica to him there in the hospital. A pretty nice note on which to conclude the film. Now, as I said, Monica Barbaro, it's wonderful. She got to speak with Joan by phone. Joan, now in her 80s, and this was captured in a Guardian interview that Monica Barbaro gave, a portion of which reads as follows. Monica Barbaro, meanwhile, absolutely nails Baez's formidable character and the crystalline purity of her vocals, despite having no musical background, little personal connection to folk. Quote, in elementary school, we would sing This Land Is Your Land and like Kumbaya, but I didn't have much of a deep relationship with it, she says. And having to endure what sounds like the deeply disconcerting experience of a phone call from Baez, quote, the night before, I had to perform Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, the first song I sang and played in front of an audience, and the hardest song to play guitar-wise. Indeed. I struggled with this feeling of just so much gratitude for everything Joan has done and for being willing to speak to me and how much I admire her. I try to let that get out of the way and just have a conversation, but that's hard. Of course it is. Having studied her voice so closely, her speaking voice, every interview in the 1960s, and then hearing Joan's voice now in her 80s in real time speaking to me was an incredibly emotional experience, really cool, and kind of mind-blowing. But she was really not fussed about the film truly. I think I was more concerned on her behalf than she was for herself. I was sort of saying, you deserve your own biopic. So many biopics with different chapters of your life. And she said, I'm just sitting in my backyard watching the birds. I lived it. I did it. So Joan isn't getting caught up in it. She lived it. She did it. But man, Monica Barbaro clearly was blown away by the opportunity to speak with this genius whom she had the privilege of portraying in A Complete Unknown, and now being celebrated justly so for her portrayal here in award season. And what's so impressive, among other things, about this recognition that Barbara's getting at the Academy Awards is it was only, what, 4 years ago that Barbaro starred in her first feature film? That was The Cathedral in 2021, which, by the way, has a 96% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. She stars in that film as Lydia Orkin, whom The Hollywood Reporter praised for that role as having been, quote, pitch perfect in a less developed, more symbolic role. So she, right away, there in her first feature film, was garnering notice for her talent. Then, of course, you probably saw her in Top Gun Maverick in 2022. Also a 96% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. There she starred as Lieutenant Natasha Phoenix Trace. She had a couple of intervening roles: Peggy in the 2022 film I'm Charlie Walker, Sophie Wilder in the 2023 film At Midnight. And now here we are with A Complete Unknown in 2024. She mostly did TV work throughout the 2020s with shows like Unreal, Chicago Justice, and The Good Cop among her credits. So really, in just her, what, fifth feature film, at age 35, these SAG and Oscar nominations are rewarding her, I think, for having stuck to her dreams for many years now, to now find herself at the top of her profession in her mid-30s. And I'm sure you share my excitement to see what's ahead for her now, and this kind of substantive roles that probably will come her way in the wake of this success. So the bottom line for me is, yes, I've always, as you know, if you've seen any of my prior videos about this film, had real concerns about its handling of the facts. But the film also, I think, serves up a masterclass for aspiring actors, led by a true and tried veteran in Ed Norton, a younger breakout star in Timothée Chalamet, and now a wonderful actor in Monica Barbaro, who is herself a rising star with huge promise ahead, as this award season is demonstrating. I enjoy seeing this film celebrated, despite my concerns about its narrative, because I enjoy seeing Bob Dylan celebrated. I'm a huge Bob Dylan fan. I would love to see Dylan celebrated at the 97th Annual Academy Awards through the celebration of Chalamet, Barbaro, Norton, and Mangold. The sense I have is that there's huge excitement in the air for Emilia Perez, which scored 13 nominations, The Brutalists, which scored 10 nominations, as did Wicked, by the way, 10 nominations for that one as well. So I think A Complete Unknown is going to have a hard time competing with those films in the big categories like Big Picture, Director, and Best Actor. But listen, in these supporting actor roles, both male and female, this film could squeak in a win or two. And in my view, I ardently hope that person is Monica Barbaro, whose command of her role as Joan Baez and all the unbelievable work she put into learning how to play guitar and with some more complicated songs like Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. There you have this unstoppable combination of immense talent and immense work ethic. That's an unstoppable force in Hollywood, as it is in any walk of life. So kudos to you, Monica. I know I'm hardly alone on this channel in my hope that you come away with an Oscar the night of March 2nd.